opportunity to be creative. And at the end of the day, you want people to participate. When you've got things that when you see a shoot that really is spot on, then basically you can see what a great teamwork. Fashion, very, very important, but is it going to be part of your story? If you want to keep it simpler, then don't incorporate fashion. If you've got nothing important to say about your clothes, then don't make them full fashion, because at the end of the day, it's not important. Although fashion editors do like clothes that are incorporated into a fashion shoot, they don't want every single hairdressing or hairstyle to be just head upwards. On the next slide, you can see where styling also represents the kind of brand and the kind of philosophy that you want to adhere to, or you want to project when you kind of come to your own imaging. What are you saying when it kind of comes to your styling, your wardrobe, your makeup, and everything else? Because it's part of you. It's part of your branding and everything else. The next slide is, to me, a little bit cleaner and simpler, but again, more body fitting, more body forming. So to me, it's all about balance. And here you've got, very stark white outfits, and in one picture with a clean little box. And using a box for a model to sit on is a great way of creating shapes. So things don't always have to be very, very complicated and expensive. With very, very small little things, you can make big, big changes. So styling, I think, is a very, very important thing when it comes to fashion. If you don't have the budget or the access to some of those clothes, then really keep it very, very simple. It's not always important to have great, great styling, although it depends on what you want when it comes to your concept board. The next slide is quite interesting, because this is where you can kind of see a contradiction, as in, the background and the environment is really quite raw, but yet the dress, I should say, is really very refined and very, very beautiful. So here you've got, two opposites working together, and I think they really work very, very well. So they're very opposite. Natural wood, again, synthetic, shiny, glassy kind of fabric and bright, bright colored hair. Imagine this in black and white. Imagine it in a white background. It would look very, very different. So use the environments that you're in, and you can use the environments in your salon. It could be outside in natural daylight. It could be a particular doorway. It could be a particular environment. There are many, many great ways of interjecting that kind of thing. And in the next slide, you'll see that we go outdoors. There you go. So this is where we can... Sorry, Kelly?
Oh, I'm sorry. Actually, I had a question come through on the chat here, and that was one of the questions that we had was, how do you choose whether you want your shoot to be indoors versus outdoors? Is there a way to make that decision? And I'm sure part of it is what you were talking about earlier, what's the purpose of your photo shoot? But if all things were equal, do you have a preference for indoors versus outdoors?
Well, there's kind of, I would agree with you. It kind of goes back to your storyboard, and and also, there's the expense. If you've got the addition of using something outside, where you've got accessibility to it, and it's not going to cost you anything, you've got permission to shoot in that area, then you don't have the budget problem of paying for a studio. So studio is a little bit more controlled and a little bit more contrived. When you're going outside, you've got different scenarios of very early light going down to, the afternoon, down into the evening. So you've kind of got all these scenarios with light. You've got less control, but that's what an outdoor photo shoot gives you, is a little bit more of a free-spirited kind of feel. And this one here was, the person wanted to shoot swimwear, but didn't want it to be by a pool or in a studio. It was very, very controlled. The girls are just simply putting it in some bushes, and they're kind of hanging out together. So I think you've got to determine from your original concept what you'd like to do, but don't be rigid about whether it's one or the other. And here's just one extra slide of the extension of that, where the girl's thrown into the bush, and she's long and she's lean, and she's kind of got a little swimwear outfit. But the environment, I think, has quite a nice kind of impact. Imagine it with no green foliage, or imagine this has been a black and white image. It would give her a different mood completely. If you haven't shot outside, I'd encourage you to do so, because it has a completely different mode and a different feel. For me, I would base it on whatever the end image is regarding my concept board. These images were about accessories, jewelry accessories, like, wristbands around the chest, and also the next pictures kind of show that. So for me, the hair is quite a visible part of what we're doing, but it kind of really accesses and complements the jewelry, opposed to having something that really is very, very fixed. So it's really quite different. To me, the hair is about texture. And as I've matured and as I've gained more experience in my photo shoots, I've got to understand texture a lot more and what shows up on film. One of my biggest faults that I used to do was to put way too much product on the hair. When you put too much product on the hair, it shows on film. The hair looks rigid, and basically what happens is it tends to look very set. Here, the photographers put the hair back, and you can see hair being shot in a non-conventional way. And I like this because it doesn't always have to be shot with the head up and with the model facing to the camera. There are lots of different ways to express hair. And I think what one you need to do is work at that relationship with your photographer, with your team, have an idea, but be open. Damien, do you mind if I shoot her head with her head back? Go for it. You know, you take a few pictures. Here there's a bit of an interaction with another model. Her shoes are, you know, projecting her upwards. This was done very, very quickly because it's very, very difficult to get her up so tall. So, you know, she kind of got up in a few things and the snapping was done very, very quickly. So to me, it's about having an emotion and a theme. And the theme of the concept of this is about a team bringing the concept to life. Clothes are very minimal and not expensive. They were a thrift shop for clothes. You could get them very, very quick and very, very easily. You can cut them up. You can kind of pin them together. You can create shapes. And all these kind of things give you instantly a wardrobe that you didn't think would be effective and you could afford. The next slide is probably...
Oh, sorry, Damien, we have a small delay. Forgive me. Yes, we do. We've had a few questions coming in related to this one topic, and you may address this later, so feel free, but about budget. And I know that's probably a long answer, but a lot of people are saying, sort of, what's the minimum budget that you can work with to have a successful photo shoot?
Well, to be honest with you, the minimal amount is absolutely zero. And a lot of my shoots throughout my hairdressing career, and even to today, won't cost me anything. Because what you have to do is you have to surround yourself with people, and you have to find these people, and they do exist no matter where you live, probably maybe a few more in certain major cities. But there is always a photographer who's looking for a great hairdresser, and he's always looking for a great makeup artist. There's always a stylist looking to put the clothes on a model and have hair done. So the team is there. What you have to do is you have to basically go network, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that later on. But really the reality is I would spend my money, if I had to break down the budget, is to spend it on the model first and foremost, and then it goes down into the photography, and everything else would come second and third or fourth. But the reality is you can get somebody to photograph for free, and the same for a photographer, if they know that they're going to work with a team of people, that they're going to get a great end result. It's actually known as testing. And when you test, it means that everybody's working together to create an image that will go in their portfolio and probably won't be used for release, in other words, to go to trade magazines. That would be another agreement that you would have to have. So, you know, when you're looking at a minimal budget, it could go from, you know, $500 to $1,000. It just goes on and on and on and on. And actually what we've got here is probably something that's very simple and contradicts everything that I was just talking about, because first of all, the picture's blurry, which a lot of people don't like. The makeup is minimal. There's hardly anything on it. She's not wearing any clothes. She's wearing a wig, and there you go. And in fact, it got me the most exposure out of all of my images over the last 10 years. So here is an excellent example of what would cost me literally, it cost me zero to create this picture with the team that I worked with. Because the model basically, you know, volunteered. Everybody did it on that kind of basis. And then it was submitted to a magazine for release, and then everybody got tears from it. So there was a double whammy there. So we kind of went in knowing that we were going to get great pictures for our portfolio, but then when we got the tear sheets from the magazines, that's absolutely fabulous. With this, you've just got a series of different things here. This is makeup. On the next series of slides, neutral and natural. Naturals, basically, all you're doing is just making things look like the person doesn't have anything. Neutral is just emphasizing and just adding definition. Make sure your verbiage and your idea communicates that to the makeup artist, because their idea and your idea can be completely different. Just like when we're doing a client's hair, what's their idea of short hair? Short hair to me is when nobody's got any hair on their head. A client, it's slightly different. So communication between the team is vital. And a great way of expressing that is basically having images from magazines and keeping your images very modern and making sure that the images that you have represent what is going on today. Because too much makeup or